Hello and welcome everyone back to another episode of the Publisher Lab. I am Tyler Bishop and I am making the dial spike as we speak. Shelby's always super surprised to find that I'm much louder once we start the podcast than when we do sound check. Is that not right?
That's definitely usually true, yes.
So joined alongside me today, Shelby King. Of course, I'm Tyler Bishop, and we're joined once again as a fate, I would have it, or circumstance, or I don't know.
Coronavirus.
That is the voice of John Cole, who joins us once again, thanks to, or I guess not thanks to, I guess just because of the coronavirus.
Yeah, let's just blame that. It's fine. I had an extra week in California, which I've got to say has been really good.
Versus March in London.
Yeah, where it's cold and raining, and here it's almost perfect, I would say, pretty much.
Oh, you said it was a little too warm to sit outside for lunch.
It was actually a little bit too warm to sit outside for my North European blood, yes. You're sitting there with a blanket.
Yes. All right. So the first topic, or the first couple topics, are actually coronavirus related. So the first one is from Media Post, and it's about the New York Times and how they expect ad sales to decline due to the coronavirus. So they predict digital ad sales to drop about 10% in the current quarter, and this is due to the impact on the economy as a whole. And so they also expect total advertising revenues to decline in the mid-teens this quarter. So they already experienced some decline in digital ad revenue for the past 3 quarters straight, but they had previously only predicted a decrease in the mid-single digits, so it's going to be a bit larger than what they were expecting. That being said, they still continue to expect an increase in subscription revenue. So do you think this is just an excuse that, ad rates are going to be down, or digital ad revenue is going down, or do you think this is actually going to impact a lot of publishers? What are your thoughts?
Well, John, ad rates do seem to be a little bit lower this year looking at the index. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts as to the climate and why that's the case?
Some of it's going to be to do with the coronavirus, and you've got to remember that ad rates are also a reflection of confidence in the economy. So people spending money on advertising is because their business is going up. Digital ad spend is the most easy to pull. So if you're booking campaigns with radio, TV, where else do you book? Newspapers? I don't know, probably not anymore. But it's easy just to pull, right? Or reduce your spend. I think overall the threat to the ecosystem from this viral outbreak is going to be to do with the supply chains. So if Apple can't produce a new iPhone or sufficient quantities to release one, then that they're not going to advertise, right? And the same thing with anybody else who's waiting for that one widget to arrive. So then you've got this sort of knock-on effect in the supply chain. So you've got supply and demand. Demand's probably okay. Supply is an issue. And then if you're a manufacturer or if you're a retailer, you've got all of your inventory, you can't sell it. Or if you're manufacturing, you can't get it out the door and get paid. So then but your suppliers still want to get paid. So then there's a cash call, and I saw the Fed just reduced interest rates, emergency cut. Is that going to affect things? Probably not much, right? So what else could they do? Well, it's hard to say how you could have a fiscal stimulus. I mean, if you could try tax cuts, Donald Trump's favorite subject, which I'm a massive fan of, not living in America, mind you. But then you've got tax rebates or something like that, which would have to come in a lot quicker. Otherwise, you're going to not stimulate the economy in time. But yeah, it's all a bit fluid. I would say it's probably 10% sounds probably about right. I mean, they're making it up too, right? Media Post. So subscriptions going up. Yeah, I mean, I guess
self-reported.
Maybe. Yeah, self-reported. Yeah, subscriptions and Media Post appear to be spiking. But yeah, that's my take. Is it'll be quite a big bump in the first half of this year, and then it depends on how widespread this problem becomes, and if there are travel bans, and if they close schools and stuff like that.
Yeah. So my next topic is kind of the flip side of that. So we have some publishers kind of seeing opportunities in all this. And one of them is BuzzFeed. So they're launching a texting campaign around the coronavirus. So it allows them to send new news information and also answer questions through text. So one of their chief executives said that BuzzFeed has always embraced social platforms. It's the best way to meet our audience where they are, especially rather than expecting them to come and find us. He also said they're excited to experiment with a two-way dialogue with readers, and that the COVID-19 outbreak is moving so quickly that they already know readers have a lot of questions about it, and it just makes sense to use text as a way to communicate that. So readers can sign up to the service simply by entering their phone numbers on the campaign's landing page. So what are your thoughts on this? Kind of a good opportunity for them?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I think, getting a phone number from an audience member is always really tough. But I think, like, take your shot. Being connected to your audience is really important. Mobile numbers, I think, are like a new angle that people are, and by people, I mean organizations that are large enough to think about their business as a data business, which I'm guessing BuzzFeed probably thinks they are to some degree. But John, I think it's interesting just in general, when you have a topic like the coronavirus, it's self-perpetuating because you realize like there's this hunger and this appetite for information. And then you realize as a publisher, like, hey, I can just keep cranking this stuff out. And, I find myself multiple times a day searching new things about it, like trying to find out, like almost everybody on the planet has some kind of future travel plans. And you're basically trying to figure out, like, is this gonna affect that potentially? And so you're kind of looking to see how things are going. And next thing you know, like you've fueled this, supply and demand for more information about, I don't know. I'm curious your thoughts on just the subject in general.
I think it's a great idea that they're doing this. I think any two-way dialogue with any audience is fantastic. I'll bet you most publishers would love that themselves. Also, getting the phone numbers is genius because then you've got a push organization that you can push people into basically generating more traffic for you, which everybody wants. In terms of like this particular phenomenon, I think this I'm kind of excited to see what happens to certain, I was noticing around the office what screens are open, and there's a ton of news being consumed. So if you're, Business Insider and you come up with something that ranks for a particular keyword, and I'll bet you there'll be publishing teams out there saying, we got coronavirus, and then you've got COVID-19. Damn it, we've got another keyword we've got to rank for. Let's make sure we put it in all our articles. So that's probably like the Machiavellian part of me looking at it from how are they making money? But I also think that it's a little bit like the Donald Trump effect, do you think?
Yeah.
It's sort of required reading for all journalists to have Donald Trump's Twitter feed open at all times. It's a little bit like that for the rest of the population now with this particular thing.
And that actually had me thinking about the first story that Shelby brought up, which was the ad rates. And despite the fact that, they are a proxy for the economy and how people think the market is doing, we do have an American election coming up later this year, and there's a lot of news and information related to that. And typically election years are pretty, like they're boom years usually for ad rates. So if you're like, is this year going to be a sad sack year for ad rates? I do think that there's enough going on to where you can say like things might still be looking up.
Yeah, or at least even. But you've got to look at fast-moving consumer goods. A lot of them do get made in China. I think I was hearing yesterday that I think it was Procter & Gamble said there was 27,000 product lines that are going to be affected. Wow. Didn't even know that there were 27,000 products that you could buy. But if you make things like shampoo and toothpaste, all the rest of it. I mean, I don't think we're going to be going into any shortages right away. But if this goes on for a very long period of time, those manufacturing bases are going to have to move, or at least be replaced or supplemented by other areas that don't have restrictions on workers. So it's kind of interesting. So there'll be pluses and minuses. Overall, I would say our ad rate's going to plummet for the rest of the year. No, they're not.
All right, we've got it recorded, and we'll find out later this year.
Hold me to it.
Yeah, let's hold this episode until we know for sure. Make John look smart.
All right. The next topic I got from Search Engine Land, and it's Google tightening their FAQ markup guidelines. So Google has updated its content guidelines, and it says that you can no longer mark up the same question and answer with FAQ schema if the question and answer is in multiple pages of your site. So Google said just mark up one of those FAQ pages, but no more than one. And if you don't remove it, you are going to be in violation of the new guidelines, which could potentially lead to all your pages not showing FAQ-rich results in the Google search results. So just kind of an update there. I don't know how many people are doing this, but I saw it was a Twitter thread, and it's like people conspiring like, well, Expedia looks really suspicious of doing this, and like a lot, throwing in a lot of different websites and companies in there.
Yeah, I think you see this pop up every now and then where enterprise, like these large enterprise, big brand publishers often will run awry of Google policy, and every now and then one of them will like drop out of the results, and somebody will be like, oh, did Google hammer them? But then you find out like somebody from Google probably actually calls them and says like, hey, everyone, we need to fix something. Mm-hmm. But let's pretend that doesn't happen and they just fix it magically on their own. Things like rich data and the new recent like no follow, sponsored follow, the new rel equals stuff, all that they're all things that Google doesn't need from a publisher to be able to provide rich results or to be able to understand like what a link does on their site. What I think is fascinating is that Google has essentially found a way to get all the websites that are indexed in their search results to train their machines for them. So you think about it, you don't have to have schema markup on your website for Google to pull information to be in the knowledge graph. You also don't need to be able to tell like that you have a sponsored link on your site for Google to know that it's an affiliate link. They know what an Amazon affiliate link looks like. They've, their crawlers have hit tons of them. But now what they've done is they've basically said, hey, we're ready to see how good our machines are at this, so we can maybe put more weight into these things. And so now, hey, mark up your sites and like do it right or else. And so I think as a publisher, you do want to make sure that if you are adding these things to your site, that you do a good job of it, because Google may end up using it as a signal. And it's not just a matter of using it on your site, but it's more of a matter of if you have those signals, Google may treat your site differently because of the things that you've self-enforced. So I would say you're better off not doing anything than not doing it right. So
I agree. I was sitting here smiling when you were asking the question because I was like kind of looking across at Tyler thinking, wow, here we are all discussing how we should serve up our content for Google so that Google can put it on google.com, and so we're not going to get paid. And make sure you do it. And if you do it wrong, we're going to punish you, just so you know. It's like, oh my goodness. I know that I shouldn't really be commenting quite so harshly, but I guess the overall aim is that they're trying to improve search satisfaction. And the idea is that they don't want one well-funded partner to hog all of the schema results when they're serving it up directly in google.com.
Yeah, I think you're probably right about that.
So that's the way that I see it. It's a way of kind of restricting the more powerful publishers. I don't know why they can't do that without telling. I guess they've just got to put rules around schema. But if publishers are listening and they're wondering what schema is, it's just a way of telling Google what something is, so that they can interpret it.
It's metadata basically that's saying this is the author, this is the image, this is the body of the content, this is what type of content this is. It's an article, it's a FAQ, it's a review.
Yeah. Have you actually done any of those on your sites, Tyler?
Yeah, on all of them.
Oh, have you?
Mm-hmm. It's really fascinating because I've, in limited experience so far, I've seen almost no difference in a site's knowledge graph results or its traffic or keyword rankings before and after implementation. Nothing significant, at least. Nothing where you see a site where it's, wow, big jump. And a couple of major publishers that you and I know, John, that I have helped them implement it properly recently, and no difference? Nothing needle moving.
Not a flicker? No? I was thinking about doing it for my site, but haven't got around to doing it yet. Too busy.
All right. I think the last topic I think I might want to preface that this was one that Tyler had suggested. But it's
I did this one specifically for John Cole because I have a narrative with this that I think he'll appreciate. But yeah, go ahead.
all right. Well, this one is from Variety, and it's about how Pornhub is releasing their first ever non-adult film. So the move places the digital giant, which is estimated about 42 billion visits to the site per year. So in the sorry,
42 billion visits. Wow.
yes. So in the
Okay.
company of a lot of other streamers seeking to expand audiences and diversify its content portfolios. The movie will stream on Pornhub for free for an entire month of March, and it's all going to hit broadcasts on the Criterion channel. I'm actually not familiar with that one. And finally, it's going to hit iTunes, the iTunes store by summer. So the movie is actually about a black lesbian strip club culture. So not adult film, but very still adult related.
Staying in their lane, they are.
Exactly.
Staying in their lane. I thought it would be some guy coming to fix a washing machine, and they don't have sex. Like,
It's just a very like this is what happened type
Boring.
of story.
So the film was actually created by a really prestigious filmmaker, and also she is a conceptual artist. It's already been premiered at the Whitney Museum and at the MoMA, and it was created from nearly 15 years of footage shot by the filmmaker over the course of her adult life, and offers a humorous, sensual, and informative look into the vibrant subculture. So she says that there's a cool opportunity right now to present films in the art space. There's more openness and diversity in content, and kind of just different forms of storytelling. So the Pornhub's brand director said that the film is a larger kind of general commitment towards supporting the arts. They want to be seen as a platform that artists and creators can use. They also say that they've already seen artists in general uploading content to the site that may not have a home in places like YouTube or Vimeo because they don't permit nudity. So, Tyler, I'd like to hear this narrative.
Well, first of all, I hadn't actually read the entire story. As with many news articles, I kind of read the headline and then double check to make sure it is what it says it is. But man, the story has everything. It literally has everything. You've got all kinds of different things that are weaved throughout this. But no, what I actually thought this would be fun to talk to you about, John, is we always talk about it being the golden age of publishing. And the opposite of that is, there's always kind of been this running joke among publishers where they would be like, content and, ad rates or whatever, the business is so bad. The only thing that we're going to be left to be able to do is porn,
Yeah.
And here we are in 2020 and you've got Pornhub pivoting to content where they're saying, man, I want to get some of that non-porn content business at 42 billion page views. Incredible amount of traffic. But I do think that what's interesting to me, actually more so than just them pivoting into what I very, in quotes, would say is non-adult content, because it is very much in that lane. I do find it interesting that they're positioning themselves as a platform for quote-unquote artists, but really anybody that feels like, hey, I've got content that people are really interested in, but YouTube's not a home for it, and it's not porn. I need like a place. And then Pornhub's like, we got you. Like, not porn? We got that too. We got one.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's just a very, very smart move. I really do. I think that the idea of having a non-censored video channel, totally uncensored, okay, their brand name has a slight, problem with the name. If they want to move on like into mainstream, it's still going to be called Pornhub. It's like one of the biggest retailers of mobile phones in the UK is called Carphone Warehouse. They've never changed the name. So you got any car phones? So Pornhub are going to be constrained by their own brand. But I think it's a very smart move. And especially when you think about, I don't know if you guys have heard this phrase called splinternet. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't.
And the idea is that some governments are some governments, quite a few governments in the world are supervising what their citizens can watch. So Russia is the most famous one, or China is really the most famous one, the Great Firewall of China. And what they do is they route all requests through from every ISP through government hubs, which then removes, if you put into Baidu, Tiananmen Square in Chinese, then you will not get a return. Or if you do, it'll be from a government website. And that's the way that they control information. And so they call that's like, we've got the open internet, which we are all very lucky to be able to access, obviously including Pornhub and other streaming services of the same ilk. But I say bring it on. I think it's great. The idea that they could have an arts area of Pornhub, I think it's great.
I think maybe they're probably underestimated in respect to the amount of technology they probably invested in and the infrastructure that they have to support that kind of traffic.
Yeah.
They probably have a pretty nice data warehouse too. So I think it's possible that people could sleep on them. I will make one prediction, and it's based on the Carphone Warehouse comment, and that is that they will either shell corp and that they'll alphabet up and they'll create like a parent company or holdings company or something like that, or they will like rebrand as like P Hub or Fub or something like that.
Sean Hub.
It's a little bit more friendly. But yeah, I have a feeling that this is just, probably scratching the surface of what they can do. And if they have success with something like this, I could see them becoming an alternative platform for a lot of different things.
Well, especially if you're an indie movie producer, just getting your content out there in a form, let's say it deals with troubling concepts and doesn't get approved for YouTube, where do you go? Like, that's a good question.
Definitely. That's actually all the topics I have for this week, but what an interesting week it's been.
Yeah, it has.
It has, and we got lucky to have you again, John, here on the podcast. Anything else that's particularly top of the news, top of mind to you that you want to leave our listeners with before we get you again?
I would say, obviously keep on top of your coronavirus news. I think that is going to affect a lot of different things over the next few weeks, and whether we, as a world, whether we get on top of it will determine whether we go into some sort of like economic shock stroke recession, or if we just sort of manage to wiggle our way through it. So certain parts of the world are obviously suffering more than others at the moment. It was just, I think if we do get to the point where they shut schools down and movie theaters and all the rest of it, I would say it's probably like a 10 to 15, maybe 20% hit for several months. That would be my. But if you're going to write about any content, you know what to write about. So if you can rank for it.
Yeah, right now I imagine it'd be really difficult.
Yes, I would think so.
And actually, just kind of searching it yesterday, looking for news. There's so many, basically just World Health Organization (CDC) based websites and things like that. I would imagine it's pretty difficult. But that being said, sunny side up. If you're a video content creator and YouTube has been a thorn in your paw, there's alternative now. We know about that. And so for the most part, I think digital publishing still is a great place to be and a good industry to be in any economy, especially right now. And we'll leave you with that. And we want to thank you for listening to another episode of the Publisher Lab. We want to thank you also if you're watching this online. Our video version of the podcast is finally picking up some steam. So we like to practice what we preach, and we try to test out some of the things we talk about on the show. And if you follow us on any social platforms, you can see clips of the show. You can go to publisherlabpodcast.com, and you can send us questions. You can get all the different versions of the show and leave us reviews. Those have been really helpful in helping us grow the show. And it's been a few episodes since I shamelessly promoted this. Please leave us reviews.
Well, even though we haven't gotten any reviews in the past couple episodes, I have had a few people reach out via email to tell us that they like the video series or they like things that we're doing. So that's been good too. So that's all I want to say.
All right.
Bob19 says, I can barely hear the podcast out of the left earphone. Maybe it's my earphones, but maybe it's the podcast. Look into it. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll catch you next time on another episode of The Publisher Lab.